What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Off the Bench. Brandon Carney alongside Madi Kroll. And Madi Kroll is on site at the Super Bowl, the prestigious Radio Row / Media Row, whatever you want to call it. Madi, how's the experience been out there?
It has been amazing so far. We just had opening night last night. I barely have a voice, but we're out here. Next year, we're going to need some Brandon Carney action because I did run into somebody last night that was like, hey, is Brandon here? And I was like, no, not this year.
It's like, nah, maybe next time. Yeah, look, hey, that would be a really cool experience to have next year. And if Off the Bench keeps going at the trajectory that it's going, we're going to have our own table set up and everything there. It's going to be the biggest podcast on site.
I do have a question, though. How would you react to players coming up to you saying, why did you take my daddy hat away from me?
I mean, that would be something. Look, I see a couple of these players, right, that, like my videos or whatever, and I can sort them by, verified accounts. So I know a couple people that have. You got some linemen here and there. I mentioned Mekhi Becton last show. But at the end of the day, you don't know, what players have at least seen your stuff, once or twice or however many times, and they're just maybe not interacting because not every player does that. Not every person does that. So that would be interesting. I'd love to get a larger scope of people I recognize you, because I think if, Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce said that to me, I might just pass out on the spot. So
would you?
Not actually, but it would just be really cool to get recognized by any of those higher level players that I make this content about, and then you're just like, oh yeah, I forgot that's a real person who's just really good at sports, and I just watch on TV every Sunday or whatever day it is. So no, that'd be really cool, and hopefully that becomes a reality at some point. But you got anything crazy happen to you so far there at the Super Bowl, or just losing your voice and trying to talk to Jason Kelce?
Yeah, Jason Kelce made my entire life. He laughed at me, so my life is complete. I don't even need to go to Super Bowl. No, it was a fun environment getting to be around everybody. The cool thing was seeing all these different media outlets and seeing the different interview styles was really fun, but nothing too crazy has happened yet.
Yeah, I got to say, seeing some of the interview questions has been very interesting. I contemplated making a video about that today, and I may do it in the coming days, of just if NFL players were allowed to honestly answer some of these questions, because we have some very, very insightful, thoughtful questions. I want to give a shout out to Theo Ash really quick. If some of you are familiar with him on Twitter, he's doing a great job. I've seen some of his clips, very insightful questions. But then you've got people, asking Nick Sirianni, which Eagles player would he not let date his daughter? And he's like, my daughter's 5 years old. And I think we all understand the sentiment of it's one of those questions. I think we saw it go viral with the Vikings, and they all answered Stephon Diggs. It was a few years back, obviously. And so it's designed to be okay, who's kind of the douchiest player on your team, but in a nice way. And no, he just completely threw it back in their face. It was like, my daughter's 5. That's a stupid question. And I'm just like, man, if some of these, I just want some of these coaches and players to just go off at the ridiculousness of these questions, not have to give the reserved answer. We're just shutting it down, but just let them go absolutely off. I think that'd be a good time.
Let's just hear it. Yeah, you can definitely tell that the players have been trained to answer diplomatically.
Right. And it's like one step above Marshawn Lynch's I'm just here so I don't get fined. They're just like, yeah, I'm just kind of whatever. This may be a shorter podcast. We'll see what happens, but we're kind of in a weird lull right now, right, Madi? Because, we previewed the Super Bowl last week. We'll do a little bit more of that this week, but we're at the point now where we're just previewing one game and then reacting to some of the stuff that's happened in the offseason. Well, these teams who off seasons have begun. And some of them have been a little more active, some have not. The first thing I did want to start with, though, is the one game, in air quotes, that we had last week, which was the Pro Bowl. What was your thoughts on the Pro Bowl's new format? How much of it did you catch, and what were your just thoughts on it overall?
So I was flying back. I was at Senior Bowl last week, but I did get to catch some of it. I felt like it was almost more targeted towards a younger generation, and I didn't mind it. I thought that if I was a 10 to 13-year-old kid watching that, I would have thought that it was the coolest thing in the world. I think that we need to find something that would allow them to get a little bit more competitive without getting hurt. Like Mike Golick Jr. mentioned, they should play a round of knockout, with basketball. Just because they're running after the ball, they're chasing it, it's going to get competitive, but nobody's really going to get hurt. The flag football stuff, there was a couple of things that was cool. It was just kind of boring when you're used to watching guys smash each other on the field,
Yeah, I get that. I think it was definitely a step in the right direction at the very least. You saw, these games and you were able to see players' personalities a little bit more, whereas the Pro Bowl before, and granted they had been mixing these games in before the actual Pro Bowl game for the last couple of years, but the Pro Bowl before almost had this like negative vibe to it because you were going in just knowing that it was going to be a half speed, if you were lucky, game where nobody's really trying and it's just a waste of everybody's time. Now you come in and these players kind of know what the expectations are and they know the vibe of it and they can all just relax a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with, a flag football game or a dodgeball game, and we'll still see that competitiveness come out of them naturally, but it's just not the same as it used to be, and I think that's in a good way. I think some of the competitions were super fun. Some of them I would like to see some adjustments, though. My favorite one, I think best catch it has room for improvement. I didn't love how they executed that one this year. I will say probably dodgeball, and I do want to see some tweaks made to that as well, just because one thing I noticed was just the camera angle the entire time was a little hard to follow. I'm like, get a few more cameras on that field, get some guys closer to the action, because the overhead view, while it was fine and you could see the ball being thrown every time and all that, you couldn't necessarily tell which players were who, and it was just kind of dry. It was like all 22 just the whole time, and like, who wants to watch a game like that? That stressed my eyes out the whole time. But I think the idea of it is a lot of fun because it does let them be fully competitive, right? Like, you don't have to hold back in dodgeball whatsoever if you don't want to. So I think we saw Saquon was going crazy. Saquon was super competitive throughout the whole thing. It was a ton of fun. But I do think there's marginal improvements to be made. Flag football, though, I actually like that. I think the first game was a little bit slow, but as they kind of, got into it and settled into what exactly the game was, the competitiveness came out. And we saw that with Peyton Manning especially. Peyton was pissed.
Gosh.
That was awesome.
I loved it. I actually loved both of the Manning brothers. I thought that they were hilarious.
Yeah, no, it was a really good, insight into what we can kind of turn these Pro Bowl games into as the years go on. It's just ways to make these guys competitive, and it's hard to take that competitiveness out of a guy like Peyton Manning, he was just so mad.
He's so mad. Do you want to know one thing that I think would be hilarious to have?
What's that?
Is a roast.
Oh, just an
I
actual
think that
roast.
would be absolutely hilarious.
I think that's a good idea as long as we get the right people, because some of these players obviously are so...
We would have to vote them in.
Yeah, because some of these players are not the public speaking type, let alone the type to, write those jokes and make them. But, a roast involving, obviously, the Manning brothers would be incredible. I think the Kelsey brothers are perfect for that kind of thing. There's a lot of personalities. And that's, again, you get... an opportunity to see players' personalities who maybe there's certain guys out there who are super well-spoken and super funny, and you just would have no idea otherwise.
I'm going to have to pitch that out here. I'm going to find somebody important, and I'm going to be like, listen, Brandon Carney said he'll host it. You get it set up. We'll vote people in. It'll be hilarious.
Sign me up. I am in there all day,
You would
every
be
day.
Perfect.
That'd be incredible. Look, as somebody who's basically known for roasting players in different formats, I think that'd be perfect for me. Other thoughts on the Pro Bowl? I mean, my only other thing is I would just like to see less pre-recorded things. I think that would elevate it a lot. I understand it's their first year going all in with, games and such, but I think, for example, the long drive competition. I loved that. I loved seeing guys who some of them could golf and some of them couldn't. Jordan Poyer came in. He was like, yeah, I'm a 3 handicap. I go to the country club every offseason. I'm like, oh, God, he's about to rip this ball to shreds. But I think seeing that kind of thing live would be awesome. All you got to do is, set up cameras at a different location and be ready to go. Obviously, I was wondering when the game started how they were going to do a long drive, because I'm looking at the facility they're in. I'm like, they can't do it in there. There's not enough room. So I think just having, cameras set up at those other locations, even for best catch, if you're trying to do something more cinematic like they were doing, just do something live. I think the live aspect is what really makes it, rather than these sort of edited things. But look, we're getting there. I'll give them some leeway. First year really going all in with this. I think it was mostly a success. You finally get to see player personalities, and they don't seem miserable to be there, except Josh Jacobs, who apparently just hates everything. I don't know if you saw that, but Josh was like, Pro Bowl games are stupid. I'm like, Josh, just go touch some grass. I don't know why you hate everything, but you do.
I did see that. I think that he's just had a chip on his shoulder. Maybe the way he grew up, the way he's been treated in the league. The Raiders haven't really treated him that nicely.
Yeah.
But he did get to talk to one of our correspondents, Austin, that was there, and he did not hold back.
Really? In what sense? About the Pro Bowl or about
No,
everything?
he was asked about the Chiefs, and he just said, "I hate the Chiefs."
Okay, well, I mean, that's to be
And there was
expected.
some more that went with it, but I just love it because he's very genuine. He doesn't do those PC answers that we were just talking about earlier. You can just tell he's himself.
Yeah, no, he's honest, and you got to at least respect that. The only reason I say it seems like he hates everything is he was one of the more outspoken people about hating on fantasy football as well. And like I understand some of these players aren't going to like it because it inevitably, causes 14-year-old kids to be in their DMs like, well, why the fuck didn't you score for me this week? I understand that, but also just like maybe don't pay attention to that stuff as much. He just comes off like a negative guy, but I'm glad to hear that maybe he's just a more harder personality, it sounds like.
I think he's definitely a little bit of a pessimist. Last year he just feeds into it, and so you know how sometimes when you show some attention to things, people go way overboard. He had posted on his Instagram story last year when he was like coming off an injury, no one knew if he was playing or not. He not tweeted out, but he like posted on his Instagram story, he said, "F your fantasy team," with the emoji with the finger up. I'm just like, he does not care.
No, some players just go out of their way to just hate on things. I'm just like, why? Like, again, you have these Pro Bowl games to get people a better insight into your personality because we don't know a lot of these. But like, they're wearing helmets all the time. We've heard it. We've heard the argument a million times. It's like, it's not like the NBA where it's a personality-driven league. It's like we're trying to get every ounce of personality out of these guys that we can. Don't show us the bad parts in like the few opportunities you do get to show who you are. And I guess if that's him and he doesn't care, he's just like, this is me. But, maybe try and sprinkle some positivity in there occasionally.
And his agent was giving him the same talk. He's like, listen, you're trying to get a contract right now. Play ball nicely.
Right, exactly. Don't just show this negativity all the time. But look, maybe that's just who he is, and we'll see. We'll see what team Josh Jacobs is playing for next year because we don't know what that's going to be either. But that is a topic for a different day. Yeah,
Okay.
Not yet. Topic for a different day, just because the off season is just like it's
wild.
basically here, but also it's like not here. We got other things to focus on for now.
We did have a little tether that rathered up. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. The Tom Brady news.
Yes. Tom Brady. You want to talk about Tom Brady now? Because, we might as well get into it before our Super Bowl preview. So, Tom Brady, it feels crazy because since our podcast is once a week, right, sometimes news will come out and I'll be like, did we already talk about that? But no, it's because it came out like a day or two after we recorded and we didn't actually get to it. So, Tom Brady retiring. Do we believe it? Did he actually retire, Maddie? Do you think this is for real this time?
I do just because of the way things ended. I hate to see him go out like that, but I understand it. I think that in years previous, he had his family support, Now he's having to split his time between his son in New York and his kids in Miami, and we all know that he's not going to go play for the Bucs again. And so at that point, where does he go? I think that he's just done splitting his time, and having a set role in media is going to help him be able to be the family man that he wants to be. So I think this is where we see him. He's actually done. And he got to do it on his own terms. Last time he didn't.
Right. And he still made the playoffs, all things considered. It's not like he came out on a total dud of a year. But I mentioned it the last time we talked about his potential retirement is like, you say you don't want to go out that way. Look, that doesn't guarantee that the following season is going to be any better. You don't know. Like, you'd like to believe that in his competitive heart of hearts. Of course, he wants to go in thinking that he can improve on the season. But if he can't and it just keeps going more downhill and more downhill, then you're not going to be having a good time at that point. You can't guarantee anything. So I totally understand him finally going out. Brady has crushed all of our expectations of what, retirement age is supposed to be and productivity age is supposed to be. I was going up and down his numbers earlier today, and I noticed something that I'm sure people were talking about last year, but I just kind of forgot about. Most passing yards he's ever had in a season was with the Bucs last season, and I'm just like, you did that at age, 44, 45? The man is not human. He's really not. Like, I don't understand how he did what he did for this long. And I think
no help this past year.
Yeah, exactly. I think he is done. I think, hearing him in the broadcast booth is going to be very weird, but also I'm looking forward to it. We know now that he's not going to actually be doing that until 2024. So Greg Olsen, you have another year to, keep your job. I know people were worried about that because Greg's done a fantastic job with Fox. And they're like, well, when Brady comes, what the hell is he going to do? Got another year to figure things out. And then, we can go from there. But yeah, Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, undisputed, hanging him up. As a Patriots fan, Tom, thank you. I cannot say enough. I grew up my entire life, other than the past 3 seasons, with you being my team's quarterback, and basically fostering the love for football that has birthed this podcast. Like, I don't know if I grew up a Browns fan if I'd be here right now. I really don't. Like, I may be more inclined to basketball or baseball or other sports, but thanks to Tom Brady and his constant winning and making that team can't miss television and pissing everyone else off in the NFL world, I've felt great and have enjoyed football my entire life and been completely spoiled as a fan. So thank you, Tom. Enjoy retirement, and we'll hear you on Fox in 2024 with that $375 million contract. You're about to make almost as much money as you did your entire playing career by sitting in the booth and talking football. Hopefully it goes well.
I would have loved to see him retire as a Patriot, but this is fine too.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if he does the whole one-day contract thing, though, because Robert Kraft has already said, like, we will do everything we can and welcome him back to do that sort of thing. I almost feel like I almost feel like it'd be weird if he didn't. I know that things kind of came to an end on a sour note with the Patriots. He was just like, I want to get out of here. Like, I can't do the whole culture thing anymore. Or at least that was the perception. But I think, especially 5 years from now, you look back at Tom Brady's career, people are truly barely going to remember the Tampa thing. Like, I know he won a ring there too, but it's like you had 6 rings in New England and just constant winning. You were there for 20 years. You went to Tampa for 3. Like, the man's a Patriot, and he should retire a Patriot. Just unbiasedly, even, he should retire a Patriot. So hopefully we see that come to fruition. He actually had Bill Belichick on his podcast too, which I thought was really cool. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to the whole thing, but they kind of dispelled any notion of their relationship being, strained or getting pulled apart as much as media sometimes wanted them to. And I thought that was really cool to hear, because we never really got a clear answer on that. People were just kind of left to speculate for the longest time.
I would just love to see Bill on the podcast. Like, I can't wait to listen to that.
Right. Yeah. I got to get through the whole thing, because it's, you rarely get to hear Bill expand upon anything football related, or at least not in the way that he probably wants to, because he's always stuck on a podium and, is being interrogated basically. So no,
well, that just proves your point of you don't go on a podcast unless you trust someone, especially if you're Bill Belichick. So that just proves the respect that he has for Tom Brady.
Right. We're on to Cincinnati.
There he is.
We're on to Cincinnati always.
We will see Tom Brady in the Hall of Fame in 5 years. The clock's ticking now.
Yes, we will. The two slots in that Hall of Fame are already accounted for between Tom Brady and J.J. Watt. I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with the standing of one A.J. Green in the potential Hall of Fame recognition here, but A.J. Green announced his retirement as well, and I wanted to touch on that real quick. This was a weird one for me because, we're getting to that age where it's like every retirement or player coming into the league, like things just start to make us feel old. And this one especially makes me feel old. Tom, not as much, because his career went so damn long. And like I said, when I started watching football, he was playing. So his retirement, that's not like crazy for me. AJ Green is one who I watched his career from start to finish. Like, I remember owning AJ Green and Julio Jones their rookie years in fantasy football and being like, oh man, these are the up and comers. And now AJ Green retired. Julio's definitely not far from it. Whether he does it this offseason or not, I don't know. But AJ Green retiring, just wanted to give him some props really quick. Second in so among Bengals franchise history, second in receiving yards, receptions, and touchdowns. All of those categories behind only Chad Ochocinco Johnson, whatever you want to refer to him as. I think sometimes people may forget or have recency bias and, not realize how dominant AJ was with the Bengals for those years. But like, AJ was that guy. He was for the Bengals in his prime. He was absolutely dominant, and, calling it a career now, sad to see, but, he definitely left his mark on the NFL and had a couple of twilight years with the Cardinals where he wasn't too bad. He was still filling a little role there as a field stretcher. Not a bad player whatsoever, even down to the end.
The fantasy community will remember AJ Green, though.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of what the NFL community does, the fantasy community will hold him in high regard.
100%. I have one very specific memory of AJ Green, and as of right now, I cannot even pinpoint the year for you, but all I know is I was in high school, so it was sometime before 2013 or before that. And I'm in my fantasy matchup. I've got AJ Green. I'm losing. It's not going great. But, we're only in like the first half of the 1 p.m. games. But I'm losing pretty good. So I'm with a couple of my buddies. I'm like, all right, I need to turn things around here. I put on some hype music. We're still watching Red Zone. I'm like, things are turning around right now. As soon as I do that, AJ Green catches a Hail Mary touchdown from against the Ravens, I believe it was. And it was on I don't know if you remember this play, but it got tipped, and AJ just happened to be in the right place and caught it.
That was in his highlight film, his
Yeah.
retirement highlight film.
Yeah. So that was the play that
That's
it like
wild.
turned around my fantasy week, and I like from that point forward, I loved AJ Green and tried to draft him as many times as I could because God, he was fun to watch. Andy Dalton to AJ Green, underrated connection. That'll be one that I bring up to my kids. Like, listen, Andy Dalton, I know he wasn't. You know, you don't look at him as anything special, but him to AJ Green, that was special. I don't care what anybody says.
Your kid's going to be like, Dad's Office Rocker again.
Like, Dad's yelling about his fantasy team from 2012 again. It's 2046. Shut up. I'd be like, sorry, my bad. So those cover the two big retirements. Obviously, one a little bit crazier than another, but both very, very highly regarded players in the NFL calling it quits. And now that kind of gets us to the game that is still going on. I do want to do a quick Super Bowl preview. Well, whether it's quick or not, we'll see. But we talked about our picks last week. A couple things regarding Eagles Chiefs. I kind of wanted to break it down a little bit more positionally this week for the people, just to give the perspective of why we think these teams are going to win or who we think is going to come out on top. So we'll start at quarterback, but we'll go quarterback, running back, wide receiver / tight end. Kind of wanted to just merge those two. O-line, D-line, linebackers, secondary, special teams, whatever. We can go through whatever we want to go through and just see who has the advantage in each one. So first one, we'll start it out hot. Quarterback. I don't know if we'll have the same answer for this because of our MVP conversation, but Maddie, who do you think has the edge at the quarterback position in this one, factoring in Mahomes' ankle as well?
I still feel like Jalen Hurts has the edge here, solely because this offense was created for him. He is put in the best position to run, pass. His game is the most well-rounded. Patrick Mahomes does these crazy things, and I'm not going to take that away from him. He is a great quarterback, and as far as talent goes, he may be more talented, but as far as the way that the offense is called for him, it has to go to Jalen Hurts. There's more opportunity for Jalen Hurts to succeed. Patrick Mahomes can do some crazy things, but all of that rides on Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
The entire team is set up to help Jalen Hurts succeed.
See, I do think that's where the conversation gets interesting, though, right? Because if you're talking about purely the quarterback position, like which player is more primed to be able to prop their team up to win, I do think that is Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts has mastered, and he's been helped greatly by his team building around him the right way. Thank God they committed to Jalen Hurts, by the way, because the few months that I had to hear about they should go with Gardner Minshew, I wanted to just jump off a bridge. But no, thankfully they did commit to Jalen Hurts, put all the weapons they needed to around him. But I think Patrick Mahomes is a guy that just operates so incredibly well out of structure and can just work with no matter what he has, that I will give the Chiefs the slight edge at the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes, I do expect to win MVP, but I don't know if you saw MVP odds have Jalen and Patrick Mahomes very, very tight now. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. I think we talked about, I believe the voting's already taken place, but the odds have moved a little bit, it seems. So we will see who actually ends up taking that one home, but I'm going with Patrick Mahomes at the edge at quarterback. Now, running back, I think a lot of these other position groups will be more interesting. Running back, I'm personally going with the Chiefs here, and I think some people may find that crazy because of the Eagles, how much they can lean on their run game, the steps forward that Kenneth Gainwell has taken. Miles Sanders had a career year, but I'm drinking the Pacheco Kool-Aid. That dude is so much fun to watch. That dude runs like he is Indiana Jones running away from the boulder. Like this is life or death run every time he touches the ball, that I just find it incredible. And then you've got Jerick McKinnon, who the last 2 months of the season has just become the world's greatest red zone and receiving back. So I think the Chiefs, I'll give them a slight edge in the run game. Who are you going with as far as running backs are concerned?
I agree with that as well. I think that the reason why people might go with the Eagles is just because of that Eagles offensive line that kind of moves and forges things ahead. But as far as talent goes, an individual player, it has to go to Chiefs. And I'm also on the Pacheco train, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, Pacheco's so much fun. Like, he's a guy that is going to get me into trouble in fantasy next year. I can already tell because I want him so bad. But I also need to bring myself back and realize that the Chiefs, as far as having, like, workhorse feature backs, they haven't really done that in a while. And so I need to maybe manage expectations no matter how good he is. If I can get him in, like, I don't know. If they don't sign anybody and they bring back the exact same sort of running back core, I would take him in like the third. So maybe that's crazy, maybe it's not, but we'll see. I would love to own Pacheco again. He's so fun to watch.
No, and like the thing that's frustrating on that is the Chiefs have a phenomenal run blocking offensive line. Schematically, it makes sense. They just don't call it. They run a ton of RPO minus the run.
Right. It's like Pacheco just kind of and any of their running backs can just disappear game to game, and you're just like, well, the Chiefs still won by 20, so I guess it didn't matter. So definitely a tough thing to balance as a fantasy owner if you're investing in a Chief. Next up, we've got wide receiver / tight end. And I mean, I think I have good reason for combining these two. First of all, they're both pass game oriented, but if you separate these, the answer becomes too easy, right? Like if it's receivers, we're taking the Eagles. If it's tight ends, we're taking the Chiefs. If you're combining receiver and tight end group, who are you taking? You taking Eagles or you taking Chiefs?
I think you have to go with Chiefs just because Travis Kelce is the middle of that offense. It's everything that they do.
I'm going with the Eagles. I think I gotta go with the
A.J.
Eagles.
Brown, Smith.
They're just so well rounded. They're so deep. Whereas the Chiefs are just kind of like, look, whichever receiver steps up for us on a given day, that's great. I mean, Patrick Mahomes made Marquez Valdez-Scantling look like Randy Moss for a playoff game, so they clearly don't necessarily need brand names. That's why they were so comfortable shipping Tyreek Hill off to the Dolphins. But the Eagles, just with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, that is arguably the best 1-2 combination in the league. It's at the very least a top 3 combination in the league. And then you've got a tight end in Dallas Goedert, who obviously is no Travis Kelce, but he's probably a top 5 tight end in the league as well. I just think they're so deep, they're so well-rounded that I'm going to take the team that's, not a few injuries away from having to put Jody Fortson in at receiver like the Chiefs did in their last game. They're just kind of they're down bad at receiver at times. They got, they're trying to get Kadarius Toney to be the explosive monster that we all hope he can be. It hasn't materialized. Juju's just kind of a possession receiver guy.
Where's Juju? He's not even showing up.
No, he's not. Has dealt with injury issues as well. And then Sky Moore, talk about guys I had high expectations for this year that did not pan out. He's had a tough adjustment to the NFL because he has not been what I wanted him to be. Maybe I fell in love with how cool his name was because, spell Sky with 2 Y's. How do you not like a guy like that? But yeah, the Chiefs receiving core has just not been productive thanks to itself. Like Patrick Mahomes just kind of finds these guys and makes them look good. But no, I think the Eagles have the offensive weapon edge there as far as the receiving game is concerned. Obviously, we gave Chiefs running backs. I will give wide receiver, tight end to the Eagles. Maddie going with the Chiefs as well because Travis Kelce. I respect that too. Travis Kelce's he's too good. I understand.
He's the top tight end in the league.
Yeah, no, without question.
Without doubt.
It's like Travis Kelce and then like 2 blank tiers and then everyone else. So yeah. I totally understand that. Next, we've got offensive line. This one shouldn't really be all that hard. I think we're going with the Christmas caroling in the trenches Eagles. I don't think it's really a competition. Perfect. Yes, hit it. So the Eagles, look, the Chiefs O-line is no slouch either. They are a solid unit, but the Eagles they're the best O-line in the league, and I don't think much more has to be said about that.
Well, the crazy thing is with the Eagles is they have their offensive line is set. Their 5 guys are on the ball ready to go, but then they have depth too. There's not many people or not many teams in the league that have depth at the offensive line that can step in and actually run the type of offense that the Eagles run. The Chiefs have a good offensive line, but it's nowhere in comparison to what the Eagles can do. And I want everybody to watch because Orlando Brown Jr. has had a problem with holding the last few games. So I'll be interested to see if they let him get away with that in the Super Bowl. He just gets lazy and depends on his length. And then when you start doing that, it's hold after hold. So we'll see if they start calling that this Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll see if he gets away with that against that Eagles defensive line, which moves us to defensive line. Who has the edge here? I think it's not particularly a question who has the best player among these two lines. Chris Jones was in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, still is in contention for Defensive Player of the Year, and is an absolute game wrecker for the Chiefs. But I think there's an argument to be made that the Eagles' D-line is deeper. Maddie, who would you give the edge to as far as defensive lines go in this Super Bowl?
This is hard because you're trying not to consider in the actual defensive calls. I think that the Eagles are actually.
It's a tough one. It's probably the hardest one to come up with.
This is the hardest question, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say this. I think that typically I would say the Chiefs, but I think against this offensive line, they're not going to show out as much. So that's why I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Okay, I think that's fair. I'm also going to go with the Eagles. I think that it's just a deeper group. I mean, Chris Jones is the best player of the two units, but the Eagles boasting Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Josh Sweat, it's just all four guys you have to account for to some degree. It's not one is drastically better than the rest. So I think it's just a well-balanced unit. So I'll give that edge to the Eagles as well.
And it goes by agility, the way that they're playing the game. They'll rotate them in and out so that no guys get tired. So it's almost like you have fresh legs each play.
Right.
Obviously not each drive, but they get them in and they get them out.
Exactly. And then we'll move it back a few feet. We've got the linebackers. The Chiefs with Nick Bolton, Carlos Dunlap, and Willie Gay. The Eagles, T.J. Edwards, Kaiser White, and Hassan Reddick. I'm also giving this one to the Eagles. I mean, Hassan Reddick, this guy is everywhere, especially against the Niners. This guy was on my screen every 5 seconds. So I'm going with the unit led by him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one's got to go to the Eagles. And guys, I feel like this is slowly revealing why Maddie, you picked the Eagles last week, right? For the champion? Yeah. I think this is slowly revealing why each of us have the Eagles in the Super Bowl. We just feel that they have the edge in most of these position groups. Obviously, a handful of them will give to the Chiefs. You don't get here without, being elite or almost better than the other team in the Super Bowl at a few of those position groups at the very least. So let's move to the secondary. The Chiefs boasting L'Jarius Sneed, who is expected to play, by the way. There was concern about him after their last game. L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Juan Thornhill, Justin Reed, Jalen Watson. The Eagles, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Avonte Maddox, Marcus Epps, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think this one's the Eagles as well.
Hands down, it's the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles' defense is what has led them this. Like, the offense has been incredible, but they don't get here without this elite defense, and that's what has carried them for a lot of the year, despite their offense being nasty as well. So
I agree.
So we're going Eagles for the secondary, and then look, special teams. I can really go either way. Harrison Butker's been a guy who's been streaky at times, but I think at his best is probably the best kicker among the group. And then neither team really with a crazy explosive return game. So I feel like that's kind of a wash. I'll give the edge to the Chiefs here by just a little bit because of Butker, but ultimately this is, knock on wood, not what's going to decide this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be honest, I would say it's pretty even kill. I was going to go Eagles, but I don't really have a reason for that other than...
Let's put it this way. If this game comes down to the kickers and punters, we've been robbed of what should have been a much better Super Bowl. So let's just put it there. And then the last thing is head coach. I feel like we're probably going to be on the same page here just because of longevity. And I'm going with Andy Reid. I think you have to give the advantage to Andy Reid, a guy who's won a Super Bowl, who's been there several times.
Creative play calling at that.
Absolutely.
You know that they're going to see something crazy.
Yeah, and it's funny because you kind of have a revenge arc for both of these head coaches, right? So you can't even say that one's more motivated than the other, but you know that Andy Reid would love to take down the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
100%.
Absolutely. So the Eagles with the edge in most of these groups, hence our Eagles Super Bowl predictions. Don't ask me to remember what score we predicted last week. All I know is I think Maddie had Eagles by 10, and I had them by 4 or 5 or something like that. Either way, we got Eagles winning the Super Bowl, and we will see how it plays out this Sunday. Looking forward to it. All right, moving on. Something else has happened with this topic today that we need to talk about. I just wanted to talk about Aaron Rodgers and what team he could potentially go to. That was really all I wanted to do as far as Aaron Rodgers was concerned. And then it comes out today that Aaron Rodgers is going on a 4-day darkness retreat that he revealed on the Pat McAfee show, where he will be in a dark room for 4 days straight with the idea that he will eventually have this epiphany of what to do with his future. This is a real thing that a real human is doing. This is not one of my skits. It will be tomorrow, but it didn't originate that way. This is not some weird TV show on Netflix. This is a real thing. Before we get into where Aaron Rodgers should go, what do you make of this? This is, I don't know what to do with him anymore.
I would have paid money to just see you interact with the people at Radio Row today when that news came out and people were talking about it. Everybody's just it was arranged. There were some people that were like, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's weird. We know this. And then there were other people that were like, he's doing it for attention. And I was like, it's all of the above. He's weird and he loves attention. Why are we surprised at this point?
I'm at the point where I'm like, how are you a real person? Like, I thought we were beyond, we got past the whole ayahuasca, whatever. We knew he was just kind of weird in general. And now he comes in, with the sequel to the ayahuasca trip, which is I'm going on a 4-day darkness retreat. And he's like, yeah, you get.
What does that even mean?
He's like, there's a little slot where they'll drop you food, and like there's a bathroom that, you have to find in the dark, but you can find it. And I'm just like, this guy is the most insufferable personality in sports.
Really, though.
Like, there's no one that even compare. You've got Kyrie Irving. You've got, I don't know, some people would say LeBron James because he's all over the media, but overall, I think LeBron's a nice guy. But there's other guys out there. I just don't think they're even on the same tier as Aaron Rodgers. It's getting ridiculous at this point. Just pick your team and shut up, please.
Yeah.
So
you can play or you're not. Who you're playing for.
Right. So, look, speaking of all that, we could talk about where we actually think he'll end up. There's a few teams that are, kind of at the top of the list. The Raiders have actually taken over as being the favorite. Maddie, it seems like we've got Raiders, Jets. That's kind of it right now. I mean, the talk was that the Packers are going to send him to the AFC, so that kind of puts a kibosh on the whole Buccaneers thing, if that was to be a thing. I don't expect it to be. So, Raiders or Jets, do you expect him to go to one of those teams over the other? Do you expect retirement? What is your inkling right now on Rodgers' future that he will hopefully come to grips with in his dark room?
I hope he finds the answers there. My gut tells me he's not done. The way that he's interacted these past few weeks, his comments on the golf course with Devontae and all that good stuff, I think that I could definitely see him in Las Vegas. And let's face it, Aaron Rodgers loves to be needed. He loves to be courted. He loves we want you so bad, we need you. He'll eat that up. On the other side of that, the Raiders have proved this season that they are trying to do anything they can to get good publicity. The stuff that they did with Isaac Rochelle.
Yeah.
If you are on TikTok, that was a total publicity stunt. And so with them putting that much effort into it, I think 100% they would love to get Aaron Rodgers there. They would love that narrative. And I think that them playing that so hard is going to motivate him and boost his ego. That's 100% a place I could see him go. But then I can also see him taunting everybody, saying that he's going to go there and then just staying in Green Bay just to be like, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I do what I want,
Right. I desperately don't want him to stay in Green Bay. And I don't honestly foresee a path that he does stay in Green Bay just because of Jordan Love's timeline. Like you cannot wait on Jordan Love anymore. Like his super, super limited game action that we saw, he looked pretty good, and it's time to see what he can actually do. Or you have to trade him. You have to do one or the other. I expect Aaron to leave, and I do think the Raiders are a good spot. We've heard all this talk the last few years of Rodgers not having enough weapons in Green Bay. All he really had was Devontae and then, a bunch of secondary players. If he goes to Vegas, I mean, he's going to have no shortage. He's going to have Devontae, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, assuming he sticks around because Waller's had some rumors of his own. But assuming those guys are all around, and if they can re-sign Josh Jacobs as well, no shortage of weapons in Vegas. I do think he'll go there. I think Vegas is very much in a we have to win right now sort of mode. They made a bunch of win now moves last offseason, and I think they continue that this offseason. I also... with the Broncos hiring Sean Payton, the Raiders need to make sure that they don't finish last in this division, to be quite honest with you, because I do think the Broncos can turn it around to some degree. And, for them to not finish last in the division under a Sean Payton-led team, I think that is very realistic for the Broncos to maybe finish third or even second in that division if things break right. So the Raiders, they need to do some things to keep their footing in the AFC West and try and keep making these playoff pushes and hopefully a Super Bowl push. If they get Aaron Rodgers, they can absolutely do that. So I think the Devontae courting, there's definitely something to it. And, Jets fans probably don't want to hear that because I don't know. Jets fans, look, maybe you do end up getting Jimmy G, what I had predicted a couple months ago. I think that would still be a pretty solid fit. But otherwise, I do think Rodgers will end up a Raider if he doesn't retire. But, again, we'll see when he comes out of his dark box of meditation, this goddamn weirdo.
The other thing is you saw how upset he was, is the only word I can think of, when David went down. When he doesn't have protection, he gets aggressive. He gets mad. He can't even focus correctly. So they have more tools, not even just on the offensive line. The way the Raiders use their offense, they have tight ends blocking. They even have running backs blocking. And he also has Josh McDaniels there, which I think Aaron kind of attributes with Tom Brady and that type of thing. There was a good relationship for a while. And so I think that that would just be the best fit possible for him.
Yeah, he knows that he'd be stepping into a situation with a head coach who is used to dealing with a superstar quarterback and making him look good and working things out the right way. So I definitely do think it's a very good fit, especially at this stage in Rodgers' career. And I just want to see Jordan Love play. I really do.
Yeah.
I just do this all, like have this all work out, and we can see Rodgers in Vegas, Jordan Love in Green Bay, and look, maybe they face off and we have a grand old time. So hopefully Rodgers finds his answer soon. But man, he is just absolutely insufferable. On the same token, Derek Carr. So Derek Carr showed out in the Pro Bowl. He really did.
Showed out.
The Pro Bowl games, that accuracy challenge on the first night, he went off, highest score by far. And then Ryan Clark asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, I've never played that well here. That's why I'm leaving." And I'm just like, "Wow, okay, fair enough, Derek, but damn, you didn't have to put it like that." Maddie, where do you see as the best fits for Derek Carr? We had some word today that it seems like he's being linked to the Saints. Do you like that fit, or do you foresee somewhere else?
I saw that, but what's in it for him at the Saints? You know what I mean? Or what do the Saints have? I feel like if the Saints are going to go after a quarterback, it's going to be somebody that they want to build around long term. Do you think Derek Carr is their guy?
Here's the thing. I do think Derek Carr is a little bit underrated of a quarterback, and I think he's a pretty big upgrade over Andy Dalton. However, the Saints are at a point where getting this guy who's like a top, 12-ish quarterback, back end of that is not really in line with what they're built to do. Like, the Saints are not really built to be a win right now sort of team, in my opinion. They're a couple years away from that. And getting, Derek Carr doesn't really speak to that for me. I feel like you want to go younger, maybe attack somebody in the draft. I'm not sure, what their path to that would be, because there's not a ton of quarterback depth outside of the top sort of picks. But I don't know. Derek Carr seems like a weird one to me.
Same. And like for that, I kind of thought it might be one of the quarterbacks that we see that may leave the 49ers. But I like the Titans for him. I know a lot of people don't. I just kind of think that that's something that they would do. Pick up Derek Carr.
I feel that, and by the same token, I feel like that's something that the Jets would do, is go get a guy like Derek Carr. Like he's basically more aggressive Jimmy. Like he's more aggressive, like turnover prone-ish Jimmy, but not that turnover prone. Just a guy that's not as boring as Jimmy, I'll say that much. So I think I could see him going to the Jets and just being a guy that kind of lifts their skill players a little more than obviously Zach Wilson could do, but hopefully more than what Mike White could do.
I would love to see that, honestly.
Yeah, it feels like a Jets move. So I could see him going to the Jets, but the Saints fit, who knows? I mean, that's the only team he's been officially linked to so far, but the offseason is young, and the offseason technically isn't here yet because the Super Bowl hasn't happened. But
and we all also know when they're officially linked, that means that they want to let people know, hey, this is right now what we have. What do you have? How much do you want for him? That type of thing.
Exactly. It starts the bidding. Sticking in the AFC West, I just mentioned Sean Payton. So Sean Payton got officially introduced as Broncos head coach. Now, I mentioned how, I could see them finishing not last in the division with Sean Payton. Maddie, I am preparing to go into another season drinking the Bronco Kool-Aid after it burned me drastically this year. I don't want to ride, but I'm gonna, because my brain is poisoned, I guess. I don't know. My Super Bowl prediction before the season was Broncos-Eagles. Give me half credit. Broncos now have brought in Sean Payton to hopefully right the ship and get a coach that obviously knows what he's doing and has experience in the role. What are your expectations for the Broncos this year? Just how much do you think they can turn things around, if at all?
I mean, they have to improve. They're basically rock bottom. I don't see them coming out and making the playoffs. I think that Sean Payton's going to be a great addition, but I truly don't think that Russ has it anymore. I think as long as that's who you have behind quarterback or as quarterback, it's going to be a rough ride.
Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't, but I'm going to do it. I think they can challenge for a wild card spot.
You do?
I do. Look, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot, but
it's a tough division too.
It is a tough division. But we've seen, these divisions that have multiple teams all vying for wild card spots, and they're all in it until the last few weeks of the season. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. That's what I thought the AFC West was going to do this year. It turns out that it was the NFC East and the AFC East, really, that were doing those things. But I could see the AFC West doing it. I just think that Sean Payton is going to turn around that culture very heavily, no tolerance policy for any of Russell Wilson's nonsense of his whole team three and his personal coaches. Like Sean Payton already said, I haven't heard of any of that in my life as a coach, and that will not be taking place here. So Russell Wilson is not going to be this pampered in his own world, like just able to do his thing quarterback anymore. And here's what I'll be interested to see. Does that culture shift mean we get a Russell Wilson turnaround, or does it mean that Russell Wilson rides the pine at some point throughout the season? Because Sean Payton is not going to deal with it. He's not going to deal with it. The reason I think they can make a wild card and maybe really turn things around is just because I talked about it all season. The Broncos have weapons really all over the field. Defensively, they were one of the best defenses in the league for a while. Offensively, they have weapons that I still kind of believe in, even though, Courtland Sutton's kind of ripping my heart out. I wanted him to be a lot better than he is, and it just doesn't seem like that's materializing. But Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich, guys I like a lot. If Javonte Williams can come back off the torn ACL and be moderately effective off the bat, they have these weapons. It just comes down to Russ and competent play calling. They lost a lot of games by not a lot of points this year. They had some where they looked really, really bad, but the scores were much closer than you would have expected given how much they were made fun of this year. It just looked like a complete disaster on the field. I think Sean Payton pointed to the last 2 games of the season for the Broncos as something that they can build on, where Russell Wilson was actually good. I think it was either 6 or 8 touchdowns that he totaled across the final 2 games, which was far more productive than the struggle to even get 1 touchdown a game up to that point. He had the whole more bathrooms than touchdowns thing going for a very long time. So I think Sean Payton can turn things around. I think the Broncos challenge for a wild card spot, whether it's with Russ at quarterback or not. So we will see how that develops, how the AFC West ends up shaking out.
I just can't do it.
I totally understand that. Okay, let's break down, or let's just touch on really quick some other coaching hires that have happened throughout the week. So the only one I want to spend decent amount of time on is the Panthers. Panthers coaching staff is coming together pretty nicely. So I was not bummed out, but I felt like Steve Wilkes maybe deserved a longer look for the head coaching job, but they ultimately brought in Frank Reich, though, who is a veteran presence at that job. And then they brought in, I don't want to butcher this pronunciation because I know I looked it up once, but I think it's Ejiro Evero as defensive coordinator from the Broncos. They brought him in, guy who had a lot of respect from the players and, again, commanded that defense, which was the only bright spot of the Broncos this year. Frank Reich bringing him in to coach the Panthers defense that has a lot of nice players on it. So I'm very excited for the Panthers defense. I feel like the Panthers are, obviously they still need to shore up the offensive coordinator portion of things, but it feels like the Panthers are really a quarterback away from making a run at playoffs and maybe a couple of wins in the playoffs.
And who would have thought we would be saying that at the beginning of the season?
Right.
Or even midway through the season with everything that they've gone through this year.
Exactly. And we have no clue at this point who their quarterback is going to be. They do not have anybody under contract outside of Matt Corral. And I want to say, I don't think it's Kyle Allen, but somebody else who you don't want starting this year. I know that much. It's not, Darnold is not under contract. PJ Walker is not under contract. So they are going to be looking for somebody, whoever that may be. Panthers are a team that's been heavily rumored to possibly move up in this draft and go after a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young. And that would be a wonderful fit because you get a lot of the time, most of the time, these quarterbacks that get drafted high, and they're going into situations where the roster is just barren. And that's what's going to happen if the Texans draft a quarterback. Like, the roster is just not built to do anything. Whereas the Panthers kind of built to do some stuff. Trading away Christian McCaffrey hurts that outlook a little bit, but overall, their defense is built to compete. The offense still has DJ Moore on it at the very least, and they can kind of build off that. The running backs, honestly, aren't to be scoffed at either. Deonta Foreman, pretty good.
I was going to say, anybody who picked him up in fantasy last year is like, hey,
exactly.
Deonta Foreman's my guy next year.
Exactly. Deonta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard have being a fairly formidable 1-2 punch down the stretch after they traded McCaffrey. So, no, I think the Panthers are about as good of a spot as you can hope to land in if you're a quarterback being drafted near the top.
But do you feel that way just because what's happening with the offense and the play calling? As a rookie quarterback coming in, your entire organization has to get behind them and set them up to succeed, or else you're going to end up in a situation like we saw Trevor Lawrence was in his first year. And that's where it gets frustrating, confusing for these young quarterbacks coming in.
Yeah, I do get that. I think it always takes some time, but at least they won't be coming into Urban Meyer as
That's true.
head coach.
That's true.
They're coming into a guy who, look, maybe Frank Reich is considered a lower upside head coach, but he's at least a guy who's done this before and, can command respect of his players and his staff. So I do think it's a solid spot for a top tier quarterback to land in from this draft, at least a better spot than the Houston Texans, because somebody's probably going to the Texans, and good luck. The other coaching moves that we wanted to touch on really quick. So the Cowboys naming Brian Schottenheimer as their offensive coordinator after Kellen Moore left. Again, Mike McCarthy expected to call the play, so we'll see how that one shakes out. Saints hiring Joe Woods as their defensive coordinator. The Vikings hire Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator.
I liked that.
That's a home run hire. I wasn't expecting that one because Brian Flores was getting heavy looks for head coach, especially with the Arizona Cardinals. And here we go. He's just going to the Vikings to be their defensive coordinator. That's a great move.
But do you think that's strategic?
Strategic in what sense? Like show himself this year and then.
I think he's going to have a head coaching shot within the next couple of years there.
That's fair. I could see that. I mean, Brian Flores is a guy who kind of unceremoniously left the Dolphins in some very weird circumstances, but he's a guy that has shown to, be able to command a defense in the NFL.
I love Brian Flores.
Yeah, I think this is an incredible hire for the Vikings, and this is the kind of thing that will potentially allow the Vikings to not be considered fraudulent for an entire season despite racking up 13, 14 wins. Maybe Brian Flores is the answer, and I think he very well could be. The Patriots hire Adrian Clem as O-line coach. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. We're not going to talk about every O-line coach hire that happens this offseason, but as a Patriots fan, I just wanted to mention it. I'm excited.
This is a really good hire, too.
Yeah, it's a very good hire.
Done, even starting at SMU, has been incredible. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to train guys, and the thing that I like about him is he trains them from the moment that they get there, and I don't know how to say this. He makes their body strength. He sets their bodies up to 60 throughout the season, if that makes sense. He makes it to where they are training to where they're not going to get injured. And that's what you see. Like the Giants don't do that. It's a problem. But that's one thing that he's known for, and I really appreciate that in an offensive line coach.
Yeah, I'm excited about that because it feels like the Patriots do have to do some offensive line shuffling basically every year due to injury, and if he can prevent that, then awesome. The fun fact about Adrian Clem is that he is the first draft pick ever in the Bill Belichick era, and now he's coming back to coach on the staff. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, first pick ever when Belichick got hired. So very cool that he gets to come back now and coach the O-line. The Patriots O-line, every Patriots fan will tell you this. Dante Scarnecchia has, retired, unretired a couple times. Every time he came back, the Patriots O-line played phenomenally and took a giant step forward. And every time he retired, it took a giant step back. So we are trying to find that happy medium of somebody that can coach the O-line who's not the very old Dante Scarnecchia, who again is retired. And so hopefully Adrian Clem can be that guy, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad they made a somewhat notable hire to address that part of the team, because it's a very important part of the Patriots offense, especially as run heavy as they've tried to be the last couple of years. Finally, finishing off with our viewer questions as we usually do. This one I thought was interesting and broad, so can kind of answer it however we want. What are you most excited about for this offseason? It could be content, news, anything. Maddie, what are you most excited about for this offseason?
I honestly am excited to see who else retires this offseason, because there's been some rumors of guys who I feel like are first ballot Hall of Famers, and we are, like you said, we already have two. So we have J.J. Watt, Tom Brady. There's a lot of rumors going around that about a couple of guys that if they win, if they lose, will retire.
Sure.
And I'm excited to see if we have a guaranteed 3 or 4 first-round Hall of Famers coming out of the season.
Yeah, we could be locking up this Hall of Fame class 5 years early, which, hey, if it's that quality, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say what I'm most excited about for this offseason, and this is just on a personal level, my own videos and all these skits and stuff, they're so much more fun during the offseason. They really are. Talking about all the rumors and stuff and basically making my own stupid multiverse of player personalities and regarding the nonsense that happens in the offseason is so much fun. It's almost content overload during the season because it's oh God, what am I going to react to and what am I going to make a video about? And the games are only relevant for another couple days because then we've got another slate of games, so I can't react to the stuff that off season's a little slower paced. I'm excited to kind of let the creativity flow and just create some some truly dumb shit for you guys because it's going to be awesome. So that's what I'm excited about. So it's just slower pacing, but basking in the rumors and the draft and all that good stuff. People always ask me, like, what are you going to do when the offseason hits? I'm like, my stuff gets better in the offseason. So do not worry about it. I promise you it gets better. It does not slow down. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And last question, Super Bowl 2024 prediction. We're looking ahead. We're looking a year ahead. Do I put the Broncos back in the Super Bowl? We'll see. Maddie, what's your pick first?
Let's go Bengals 49ers.
Bengals 49ers. All right, so the two teams that lose in the conference championship game get their revenge. All right. What do I want to go with here? I'm looking at all the teams. I have a couple I want to pick out of the AFC. There's two teams. I'm going to go a little bolder, like not teams that have, gotten necessarily super close.
You're going to choose the Patriots.
No, look, I'm optimistic, but I'm not choosing the Patriots.
That's a homer, you.
Yeah, I'm not that bad of a homer. All right, we're going to go with I'm going to go Chargers.
Oh.
Who do I want to go with in the NFC? I want to say Eagles just because I know they're going to be built to win again. So I'm just like, why would they not make it back there? I'll go Chargers Niners. Just to get a different team in there. So obviously the Niners were a team that got close. But AFC, the other team I was considering out of the AFC just to go bold but also not bold? The Dolphins. Because I
thought about the Dolphins.
I really think they'll have a chance. The Dolphins and the Chargers are my two teams that I'm like, I feel like they can and should make very deep runs. And I know that shouldn't be that bold because they were both, the Dolphins made a wild card this year and probably could have won a couple more games if Tua was healthy.
If they had their quarterback, absolutely, yeah.
And the Chargers, it's just, we're hoping for much better play calling with Kellen Moore, and I feel like that's inevitable. So I'm looking forward to what the Chargers can do next year.
I love that question, though, Megan.
Yeah, very, very good question. So, before this Super Bowl, let's look ahead to the next one. We're going with some bolder picks, but we've got this Super Bowl to take care of, Maddie. We will be reacting to that next week. Any final thoughts before, we call this a podcast and you go and do more Super Bowl media responsibilities?
I have one prediction I want you to make.
Okay.
What opening song is Rihanna going to have?
Oh, man. Okay.
So
she hasn't released music in what, a decade?
A decade.
Disturbia.
That's a great pick.
I hear the beat bumping in my head. Like I can see the stage being like dark kind of, and then you just hear the bum bum, and then it goes into it. I feel like that's what I'm going with.
I like it. I just wanted to see what you would go with.
Yeah, probably her most iconic song, in my opinion. At least one of the more you got Umbrella too. I don't know that you can open with Umbrella. You probably got to mix it.
No, that has to be somewhere in the middle because everybody's going to lose their mind.
Exactly. Look, Rihanna's got quite the catalog, and I'm looking forward to this halftime show. I can't say that every year, but I could say that this year. So yeah. Rihanna at halftime of the Super Bowl. Rest of the game I'm looking forward to as well. So we will talk to you after that game is played. Everybody, enjoy the Super Bowl. For Madi Kroll, I'm Brandon Carney, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.